What? We look silly with cameras, don't we?
Well, we just rolled up in a giant bus, a yellow school bus, so we look silly.
Wait, can...
I stay like 5 blocks away.
The desk is already well set. Okay. So, so let me just reintroduce myself. Rick Feldman. I'm from Brooklyn, New York originally. Moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1967 to go to school. Got involved with the movement. Moved to Detroit in 1970. My grandparents were from Russia and Poland and Romania. Okay. So I come here to start a tour of Detroit because this plant, called the Packard plant, was built in 1903, 1904. It starts operating, creating automobiles. We'll have a chance to walk around and stuff. And Albert Kahn, the architect, is the person who initiated sort of steel within the cement. So it was so important for the industrial age. But I come here because, and this plant by itself is 43 different buildings. For folks, it's the size of 7 Cobo halls. Cobo Hall is our convention center. But I come here because it's a way to get a sense of the monstrosity and the significance of the industrial age, of what it meant before this was built. Right? Most folks in our country clearly lived in the South, lived in agriculture, lived on farms. Right? As they moved from the 19th century to the 20th century, this was the hope of a whole new way of life. So to imagine 15,000 workers coming out at lunchtime or coming out at the end of the shift, who were paid very well, in fact. Auto workers and auto parts suppliers were paid very well compared to the rest of people who were working during the 20th century. And they would get on a streetcar or a bus and they would go home, and their churches were near here. Everything was in this area. Okay? And it was a sign of prosperity. It was a sign of an economic American dream. But you also take I come here now, obviously, because it's also the pain of the American dream. To feel the sense of the soul of America being eaten out because it lived this way, as well as because it's ended. So we have both things coming together in many ways. People are questioning the whole capitalist system, the whole capitalist culture. I come here because you have to get a sense of time. That it was 100 years ago that this way of life was really born. Or what we'll talk about in reimagining work, it was only 200 years ago that the concept of jobs became a reality. So that means for tens of thousands of years, people had other ways that they created work, that they created relationships, that they lived their lives. And to go back further in history is to say that we're not, a lot of folks will say we're the end of the automotive industry, and that's why Detroit is where it's at. And we say, no, that's not where it's at. We're at the end of an epoch in human history that started with the birth of the slave trade, that started with the birth of capitalism, that started with the birth of individualism 500 years ago, that started with the destruction of women's way of knowing and our relationship to the earth. So what we see for 500 years is we've gone from a way of life that has gone from the earth to land that could be purchased, privatized, and destroyed. Now we have to go back to earth. In the same way, we've gone from work to labor, exchange value, to work. So it's this epoch in human history that we're part of. So it's a question of time, and it's a question of how long it takes old ideas to die, and how long it takes new ideas to be born. Okay? So what would this area look like 100 years from now? Right? People in feudalism didn't sit around and say, oh, what is capitalism going to look like? A way of life begins to change. And that's why a lot of the mottos and work that we use talk about is the relationship between revolution and evolution, and not just sort of this structural change. So let me bring it back to Detroit. And we're in pretty good shape, and we're going to be good in terms of time as well, because usually people have to get back somewhere. We just have to go register and then go have fun tonight, right? And you're going to be entertained and you're going to be challenged. That's going to be cool. So I have to get my props. Hold it. I have to get my props.
Mm, mm.